tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
I will never buy an electric because of the charging.
I'm waiting for an electric vehicle, would love to get one.
As Ottawa moves to end the sale of gas-burning vehicles in Canada, British Columbians wait for more places to charge electric vehicles.
People are concerned about how far they can drive.
Delta police say a young woman is charged with first-degree murder in the killing of another woman in Ladner, and they are related. Plus,
I like skating, so I want to try to play hockey.
Opening up Canada's winter game to kids who may not normally get to play.
It's good for her health.
We'll take you to the ice in the Okanagan.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. The end of the road is coming for gas-powered cars and trucks in Canada. The federal government has rolled out new regulations that will end the sale of internal combustion passenger vehicles. As David Thurton tells us, the regulations will effectively end sales of some vehicles in 2035.
Chris McDermott loves driving his electric vehicle, as long as it's in Quebec.
We're not ready for the transition because the charging infrastructure in certain provinces, Quebec's there, but in certain provinces like Ontario, it's not there.
But it will need to be soon. The federal government is going all in on EVs.
There's no mistaking it. We are at a tipping point.
Ottawa says it has finalized regulations to push manufacturers to make fewer gas guzzlers and more battery-powered motors.
The Government of Canada is helping to ensure we don't get left behind.
The new rules apply to new cars, SUVs, and light trucks, but not used ones. Plug-in gas hybrids will qualify, but the deadline for automakers is strict. In 2026, 1 in 5 vehicles sold in Canada must be electric. In 2030, that's 3 in 5. By 2035, all new stock at dealerships must be electric. But some worry they will be financially out of reach for many.
What we found is that vehicle prices would need to come down by about a third or even half of what they are today in order to be for electric vehicles to be affordable at the very mass market level.
Ottawa and some provincial governments offer purchase incentives. For those that don't, the Environment Minister had a message.
Get on board. That would be my message. I mean, especially in Ontario.
Automakers will need to earn credits to comply with the new rules. That can be done by building charging infrastructure. But the big 3 car makers have some concerns.
There's only 345,000 electric vehicles on the roads today. That is not enough volume to make a charging station a profitable business.
This driver says charging needs to be a political priority.
What needs to be done was what Quebec did starting 10 years ago, was get the charging infrastructure in place.
He says setting EV targets without a reliable way to power them is like putting the cart before the horse. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
Here in BC, the province is 5 years ahead of the curve in meeting EV sales targets. More than 20% of cars, trucks, and SUVs sold here are zero-emission vehicles. Still, as Mira Baines explains, there are concerns over costs and where you can charge them.
Electric vehicles are becoming more and more popular in BC, even as new federal rules come in to phase out gas vehicle sales by 2035. About 1 in every 45 people already own a zero-emission vehicle in the Lower Mainland and southern parts of BC, according to the province. But not everyone is ready, due to both price and environmental concerns.
What's the cost for those batteries for electric vehicles? Like, what is the actual environmental cost? I think it's a little short-sighted.
I will never buy an electric because of the charging. You have to wait for charging. You don't know where to charge and it's raining.
Clean Energy Canada says the goal of the federal EV sales standards is to create certainty for vehicle manufacturers and infrastructure providers to plan.
BC's own sales regulation, which is very similar to what the federal government is proposing, their first official target was going to be 10% electric vehicle sales by 2025. So BC achieved that target almost 5 years in advance.
She says the move by the federal government is similar to standards being set in some U.S. states like California. This map from Charge Hub shows charging stations and infrastructure across North America. In BC, there's a large concentration of charging stations in the southern part of the province, but there's still range anxiety in other parts of BC.
People are concerned about how far they can drive on the vehicle, particularly in areas where the weather is cold or lots of rain or snow and other adverse conditions that use up the battery.
Provincial incentives and rebates have helped pave the way for BC residents to buy electric. However, there are fresh concerns due to drought and whether BC will produce enough electricity to power its charging infrastructure.
BC Hydro's been planning for this increase in demand, and with a call for power coming in spring 2024, we know that Site C will be coming online in fall 2024 as the reservoir fills then.
The minister says more chargers will also come online in 2024. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
A young woman has now been charged with first-degree murder in the killing of another woman in Ladner last night. And police say the suspect and victim are related. Yesterday, officers were sent to a home on 47A Avenue just after 5 p.m. because of a suspicious circumstance involving a dead woman. Delta police say they've now determined her death is a homicide. The Crown says 28-year-old Preeti Tina Kaur Panesar is charged with first-degree murder. Police say there is a familial relationship between Panesar and the victim, but won't specify what it is, at least yet. Panesar appeared in court today and will stay in jail until at least the new year. The provincial government is asking for a judge to reject Surrey's legal challenge to the order forcing it to transition to a municipal police force. BC's Attorney General and Public Safety Minister have filed their response to a petition from the city. They argued that stopping the transition creates a real public safety risk because returning to the RCMP would mean a scramble to get Mounties back on the beat in Surrey. They also claim other parts of BC would suffer if Surrey is prioritized for filling those positions. Meanwhile, the province has asked a former Liberal cabinet minister to be an advisor for Kamloops mayor and council. The appointment of Peter Fassbender comes after a unanimous vote by Kamloops Council in October to ask for provincial help amid lawsuits, investigations, and concerns surrounding the conduct of Mayor Reed Hammer Jackson. Fassbender plans to attend Council's January 9th meeting at City Hall. A pair of local ski hills were closed for the day because of the weather. The latest in a series of disappointments in what ought to be the ramp up to peak ski and snowboard season here. It comes as Metro Vancouver experiences its third warmest December on record. Joel Ballard has more on the soggy South Coast mountains.
The car lot barren, the snowplows parked, and the ski hills patterned with brown instead of white.
It's pretty warm this year.
And that warm weather has led to less than ideal conditions at ski hills around the Lower Mainland. On the North Shore, Cypress and Seymour closed operations for the day, citing the weather, catching some by surprise.
It's understandable on their perspective, but at the same time it's disappointed because, we came from Coquitlam, but it's still a long way drive.
It's a far cry from last year, when Cypress opened early in November, and by this point, snowstorms had blanketed much of the South Coast. But this year, there's been little snow.
We're really missing that key combination of cooler temperatures plus precipitation.
She says there's a warming trend across much of the province.
So with Vancouver experiencing its third warmest December so far on record, we're seeing temperatures that are about 2 to 3 degrees above normal for this time of year.
Grouse Mountain's downhill ski area was open for business today, but some visitors say the snow was less than ideal.
The condition is not really good. There are a lot of bare spots.
It's slushy, which is a good thing for learning actually, because it's not icy and hard when you fall, but it's not a great condition honestly.
At Sasquatch Resort in the Fraser Valley, the mountain is yet to open due to a shortage of snow.
We are all staffed up. We've got a great crew just chomping at the bit, ready to go.
The rough start to the season has left some wondering whether the hills are worth the price of admission.
Next year, I wouldn't buy in advance for the season pass.
I wouldn't say it's worth it because it's only one run open, but because we have the season pass, so it's just come for some fresh air is still good.
Looking forward, Environment Canada says temperatures around the coast should drop by the weekend. but it won't be accompanied by precipitation, so a white Christmas is unlikely. Joel Ballard, CBC News, West Vancouver.
Science and climate specialist Darius Mahdavi joins us for a first peek at the forecast. Darius, yes, very different, a lot warmer than it was last December.
Yes, and it looks like the soggy conditions will continue for a while yet. Now, if we do get those winds that we had not too long ago blowing from the north and the east, bringing us that mountain and interior cool air, we could see what we saw just a couple weeks ago, where we had that air bring us snow even to to Metro Vancouver. But it doesn't look like that's coming anytime soon, which means we will continue to see rain even at the top of some of the local mountains because of just a complete lack of the cool conditions needed to turn that into snow. So take a look here. We can take a look at the snow forecast for our local mountains here in Vancouver. And you can see, even though we see some coming to some peaks in the background, nothing over the next 48 hours here for our local mountains. So don't expect skiing conditions to improve here anytime soon. Now, plenty of rain still coming to the south coast and the lower mainland, but it's just that rain, so not any good news there for anybody who is hoping to see snow. And even if we look at our broader precipitation forecast, you can see nothing but green here on the lower mainland, and over the next few days we don't see, we even see that ease off, because most of our rainfall here in Vancouver is coming in the next 24 to 40, just overnight tonight, and in the next 24 to 48 hours we see hardly any at all. So Dan, it's a pretty dry forecast, to be honest with you.
Okay, we'll check in later. Thanks, Darius.
Thank you.
Canada is beefing up its national defense by buying 11 remotely piloted aircraft, or RPAs. They're much bigger than drones, about the size of a fighter jet, as you can see. Their wingspan is about as wide as a hockey rink. The 11 aircraft cost $2.5 billion and are expected to be flying in the next 5 to 8 years.
We can anticipate economic benefits for Canadians and a unique opportunity for high degree of participation from our home-ground aerospace and defense sector. It will be a significant driver for jobs, innovation, and growth.
4 of the aircraft will be housed at Canadian Forces Base Comox on Vancouver Island, creating 25 new permanent jobs there. The rest of the aircraft will be in Nova Scotia, and the command center will be built in Ottawa. In the Okanagan, a new program to introduce hockey to children who may not usually get a chance to play is on. As the CBC's Brady Strachan shows us, it's helping grow the sport and a sense of community.
This is how you tie your skates.
For many, it all starts here, in the hockey locker room, a place where friendships are formed. But some kids, unfortunately, never get a chance to play organized hockey.
It's such an incredible sport, but it's so inaccessible to many, many kids and youth and families.
Now I want you to be holding your stick with 2 hands.
That is where Hockey for Youth comes in. The organization is setting up these Vernon youngsters with a full set of equipment, coaching and ice time, and a chance to learn about and play Canada's national winter game.
It's just going to be a fun, safe, inclusive environment for them to not only learn how to skate, but to learn how to play the game that we talk about all year long.
It all starts with those first few steps on the ice.
Here, come with me, bud.
Learning how to fall and how to stand back up again. Many of the kids here are from families new to Canada who have no previous experience with hockey.
I like skating, so I want to try to play hockey. So today I'm trying to play hockey on the place.
And for the parents, there's a sense of pride in seeing their kids taking their first few strides.
It's good for her health. Yeah. And she can make more friends. Yeah.
And then there are other barriers to the sport that have kept these kids away up to now.
Why don't you play hockey?
My dad doesn't have enough money to pay for it.
This program is about removing the barriers and opening up new opportunities for the youth involved.
It's going to teach me how to skate, and maybe my dad said if I do well, he's going to consider taking me skating more.
And whether it's through taking those first few independent strides or scoring their first goal, organizers hope these kids will share in the joys many feel about the sport.
It's so funny. I like it.
and feel that hockey really is for everyone. Brady Strachan, CBC News, Kelowna.
An internet community dedicated to a mysterious song has finally found the singer 16 years later. Paula Toledo's song How Long was recorded in a studio in Langley in 2003, but never released. Have a listen. Local singer, songwriter Paula Toledo joined On the Coast host Gloria Makarenko to talk about what it meant for her long-lost song to be rediscovered through a Reddit page.
I got an onslaught of DMs and emails in my inbox saying that, you know, just be careful. You're going to be receiving a lot of emails from people because there's a new interest in your music because you were found. Your song, How Long, has been deemed a lost song. And I was just... I wasn't sure what to make of it initially, to be honest, and I think I was in shock.
Toledo released her original recording of How Long on a music streaming service, Bandcamp, with plans to donate the proceeds to charity. It is a video that has been watched nearly 250,000 times on YouTube. Content creator and urban planning commentator Yute Lee took a very close look at the Vancouver special for CBC News, how the special came to be and why that home design wound up getting banned. In the end, he came up with what he thought was a big lesson learned from that iconic house.
I think there's an important lesson here. Maybe we don't need to be so concerned about the look of new housing because, frankly, looks are just a small part of why we value things. The Vancouver special didn't care about being the most beautiful house, it just cared about being the most useful and affordable house for the people building them. And instead of the world ending, we grew to love these houses, for reasons I'm not sure we'll fully understand. But what I do know for sure is that right now, many cities do need more housing, and they need it fast. So I can't help but wonder, maybe it's time for a new special.
And Yute Lee joins us now. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
It's a real pleasure to be here.
You have made a lot of videos about all sorts of things, transit, housing, etc. The Vancouver special one seemed to hit a nerve, and perhaps not surprising in this region. What surprised you about the reaction to it?
Oh, I will say it was it did surprise me as well that it kind of struck a nerve with a lot, or not struck a nerve, but that it resonated with a lot of people. I'll admit, it was one of the tougher things that I had to pitch to CBC. They were like, oh, this is a little niche, it's about one house, who's gonna watch it? But I mean, I was very pleasantly surprised and validated, that people, I think really what it comes down to is that a lot of people, I mean, literally thousands of people have grown up in Vancouver specials and really had a curiosity and sort of a sentimental attachment to this sort of house. But I also think kind of embedded in that story is like a kind of an interesting piece of hope for a potential solution out of this housing crisis that we're in. The fact that we were able to build so many of these houses so quickly because it wasn't just a cheap design, but it was a very repeatable design that, kind of got the rubber stamp from City Hall within, I think it was like 3 weeks or something like that. So I think for a lot a reasons, it was a fun video to make.
And speaking of sort of repeatable design, we know the federal government reviving the Second World War housing plan said it would revive standardized housing blueprints for builders. What do you think of this move?
I was really excited to see the announcement come out, especially shortly after the video. I don't want to take too much credit for it, but I think the promise in it for sure is that like the only real way to build a lot of housing very quickly is to do a little bit of copy and pasting. And I want to be careful with there's certainly trade-offs you get with designs and certainly, not every site is the same, especially in sort of these urban centers, but to some extent we have to do some amount of standardization just to increase the efficiency at which we're building housing right now. I think that's kind of the key part of it. I will say ultimately I'm cautiously optimistic because, the federal government, they referenced, I think it was like wartime housing. It was like a specific initiative that came out of the World War II to build a lot of veterans housing. And there are a couple things that are different today than the way that we're doing it back then, which is first, it was government owned and built.
That's
and
right.
Today we're kind of expecting the private sector to build it. So I think there'll be some, it'll be interesting to see how that gets applied.
And I have to ask you quickly, when it comes to the provincial government, you're on the board of BC Housing. One of the big plans they've talked about, one of the big emphasis, has been building around transit hubs.
Right.
Quickly, what are the challenges and what are the benefits of that you find?
Yes, the benefits I think are pretty evident in that if we are to put a bunch of housing anywhere in our region, it's really in these areas that are well serviced by transit, because there are sort of growing pains that you can avoid when you build near transit. A lot of new housing, especially when you put it on the outskirts of a city and places that aren't well served by transit, you need to build a ton of parking. Often these places don't have a lot of amenities nearby. And so, when we're talking, building lots of density near, let's say, SkyTrain stations, it's a pretty sensible place to put it. But the challenge, of course, I think it is that the location in which we've built transit is also where we have a lot of renters and people who are vulnerable to displacement when new development comes in. And so I do think in some areas we have to be extra careful about those sorts of concerns. I think there are some areas that absolutely need a ton of new development. There are specific ones like Nanaimo Station or 22nd Avenue Station, where it's literally just houses next to a SkyTrain station.
Taylor, we appreciate your time and expertise. That's all we've got for now, but thanks so much for coming in.
Fair enough. It's a real pleasure.
More and more people are saying no to dining out as grocery bills still keep climbing. How restaurants are struggling to keep up amid the lower demand and the supports they're asking for. That's next. And hello to everyone watching our commercial-free live stream. Thanks for being here. A student-run Christmas card campaign is helping people living on the downtown east side reconnect with their loved ones. And as Karis Hogg shows us, volunteers have sent out hundreds of cards on behalf of vulnerable people.
Okay, who did the penguin card? Tell them I give them my $5.
Tavis Dodds is among hundreds who have been helped by Project Hello, which stands for Helping Everyone Locate Loved Ones. He's estranged from most of his family, but he wants to send a card to his dad this year. Last year, the group helped him send a bunch of cards.
Basically did all my correspondence for me, and then I've totally forgot about it, and then I saw them again this year. But then I don't have any addresses this year, so hopefully they can figure it out.
Educator Christy Blakeway formed Project Hello 15 years ago with a few of her students. She says they often use Facebook and Google to try and find some addresses.
Do our best. So this was to Grandma. Okay. And do you remember Grandma's name? First name and last name? Do you want to write that down for me?
Elementary school kids make the cards, and then every Christmas, Blakeway, along with parents and students from across Metro Vancouver, head to the downtown east side. Not only do they mail the cards, they also help write them.
We always phone a family before we mail the card because we don't want to mail these messages of love and have them go to wrong addresses.
Blakeway says the project has helped make some heartwarming connections.
I had one lady I remember who dropped the phone. She hadn't heard from her son in about 15 years, and the rest of her family believed he had died, and as a mom, she always believed he was still alive.
Blakeway says what started as a way to help people connect with loved ones has turned into something more.
By being able to listen to their stories and help build connections, we've got more back from it. We're the ones that are learning about the community and learning about the stories of people living on the streets and shifting perception of homelessness.
This year, the card campaign is reaching a milestone. They'll be mailing their 1,000th card, making 1,000 connections for people facing barriers who still want to send messages of love. Karis Hogg, CBC News, Vancouver.
Staying afloat as a small restaurant is not easy. In the Lower Mainland, those challenges come in numbers. Finch's Tea House in downtown Vancouver is struggling to manage repair costs after a 9th window smashing incident in 18 months. And last week, the Ovaltine Cafe on the downtown east side reopened after a suspected arson shut it down for half the year. These events come amid rising grocery costs, labor shortages, and lagging recovery from COVID, all weighing on restaurant bottom lines. For more on how we got to this point and what can be done to address it, Mark von Schelwitz joins us now. He's Vice President of the Western Canada branch of Restaurants Canada. Mark, I listed some problems there, but what else are restaurants facing in BC right now?
Well, good evening, Dan. And yeah, there's really a perfect storm, post-pandemic storm of headwinds that the restaurant industry's had to deal with. You've mentioned a couple of them. We've had tight labor markets, labor shortages. We have had cost increases that for all our inputs that have been about 20%, but yet our menu inflation is only 6% because we can't pass those costs all on to our consumers, obviously. We've had interest rates go up, and the vast majority of our members are still in a post-pandemic debt situation, and with higher interest rates combined with that, it's all a really difficult time for restaurants. The whole industry shifted as well, more focus on takeout and delivery, and we're still not back at those traffic levels that we had pre-pandemic due to a lot of reasons. Primarily, people still working at home and not going back to the office. So there's been a huge number of these headwinds, and as a result of that, in our latest Restaurants Canada survey, about 51% of our members are not making it. That's compared to 12% pre-pandemic. And you've also seen bankruptcies increase by 90% in 2023 over 2022 for restaurants. So those are just some of the challenges that they're dealing with. And of course, what I hear a lot from members as well is a lot of government policy imposed costs at a time when they can least afford it.
Can you specify which government costs that you're worried about?
Yeah, I mean, all levels of government, really. If we want to talk about the provincial government, there was the 5 paid sick days, a 7% increase in the minimum wage, a new statutory holiday, and other legislation. And coming in tomorrow is going to be a new provincial regulation on single-use items and reduction of plastic, which really is another cost that our members have to deal with. Federally, we've got the non-extension of the CBC loan, which is really important. Taxes going up, supply managed cost of goods going up as far as chicken, dairy, and those types of issues. So, and municipally, the taxes are going up to the point where when leases are being renewed, a lot of our small little restaurant members just can't afford to renew those leases, and that puts them out of business.
Mark, what kinds of policy changes would you like to see implemented, and what do you think are the realistic ones?
Realistically, I think that a lot can be done to help with our payroll tax situation. Here in British Columbia, for example, we've been arguing for the last few years that the employer health tax the exemption level should be increased from $500,000 to $1.5 million, and then graduated up to $4 million in payroll. That would have a big, significant impact on our members. Municipally, just try and keep those costs and the percent that businesses pay compared to residents, keep those costs down, because that's certainly hurting our lease rates. Federally, excise tax on alcohol is a big one that we're trying to get some changes on. Still, the CBC extension, we're still hearing from a lot of our members that are worried they're not going to be able to get the forgivable portion of their CBC loans back by January 18th. And in many cases, they can't even get their financial institutions to underwrite new loans for them. So it's been a real challenge. So, and I can point to numerous other sort of policy objectives that we passed on to all levels of government to try and help our industry, not just, so they don't do any further harm, but also instead help reduce costs on the industry at this fragile time, where we're going to lose even more of our small restaurants and communities throughout the province.
Mark von Schelwitz, Vice President of the Western Canada branch of Restaurants Canada. Thanks for your time and perspective today.
My pleasure, Dan.
Surprising admission from the Prime Minister. Why he says Pierre Poilievre deserves some credit for tapping into anger about housing affordability. Part of our year-end sit-down interview. Next.
The search for hydrogen is on here in this lab at UPEI. Researchers in the Faculty of Sustainable Design Engineering are looking at ways to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and combat climate change. They are producing hydrogen as a replacement for fossil fuels. Moving to PEI inspired a new idea.
Ever since I moved to PEI, and now I start realize the potato industry is a very big part of the province. And when you are processing the potato, you're going to generate a lot of the waste.
Yulin Hu has done a similar project with other agricultural waste and has now done a simulation using waste from potatoes.
Simulation results can tell us that actually the potato waste is a really promising like feedstock that we could use and then convert it into the hydrogen.
Hu has now received funding from the federal and provincial governments to build a machine that will actually test the potato waste as a source of hydrogen. And it's not just potatoes. Another project is looking at sawdust as a way to absorb carbon dioxide. And another is using waste from an invasive species called tunicate to also create hydrogen.
So in general, we are trying to convert all different kinds of the organic waste, and especially with a focus on PEI.
Here in this lab, research assistant Nasim Mia is also looking at a new way to produce hydrogen using UV light to split water molecules to produce hydrogen and oxygen.
But a lot of experiment we need to conduct before getting the actual quantifications of the hydrogen. So yeah, a lot of experiment and a lot of patient records here.
The research with potatoes has been creating a buzz. Several potato publications across North America have mentioned the work. So many eyes will be on Hu and this lab next year as she starts to put the potato waste to the test. Nancy Russell, CBC News, Charlottetown.
The Colorado Supreme Court has declared former U.S. President Donald Trump ineligible for the presidency and has removed him from the state's presidential ballot. The decision cited the U.S. Constitution's insurrection clause, which bars from office anyone who swore an oath to, quote, support the Constitution and then, quote, engaged in insurrection or rebellion against it. Colorado officials say the issue of Trump's ineligibility must be settled by January 5th, the deadline for the state to print its presidential primary ballots. As the year draws to a close, the rising cost of living has become one of the most important things on the minds of many Canadians. It's a hot political topic as well, and it's one of the things CBC News' chief political correspondent Rosie Barton talked with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau about in a wide-ranging year-end interview. The Prime Minister acknowledges that Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has been getting a lot of political mileage out of that subject.
The rate of inflation has declined overall, but the food inflation is still punishing for a lot of Canadians. They're feeling squeezed. They have to make really hard choices. Do I get Christmas presents? Do I buy this many groceries? Like, those are real things that are happening to people. It does seem, though, as though Pierre Poilievre understood that and tapped into that long before you did.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, why is that? Why did you not see
I mean,
that?
it's not that he understood that. It's that he's done a really effective job of reflecting that back and amplifying it to people. We've been hearing that across the country for years
But why
now,
did you
particularly
not
out of the
reflect it
pandemic.
back and amplify it back? Why did that room why was that room left to him?
It wasn't necessarily left to him, but when you're trying to solve an extremely complex situation that requires a number of different solutions. Yes, we delivered a grocery rebate. Yes, we cut childcare fees in half. Yes, we stepped up with increasing the Canada Child Benefit. Yes, we're working on competition to make sure that the big grocers, don't take advantage of the very small number of very large grocery chains in this country. Those are all complex and different paths. Whereas if you're just shouting and saying, it's Trudeau's fault. He's raising the price of everything because he's fighting climate change and put a price on pollution. That's a really easy message. And the things that we are doing are meaningful and real and thoughtful, and we're busy doing them, not just sort of taking out YouTube space on amplifying those concerns.
You can hear more of what the Prime Minister has to say to Rosie Barton on affordability and housing measures tonight on the National. Barton's full year-end interview with Justin Trudeau airs next Monday, Christmas Day, at 11:30 right here on CBC Television, and it will stream on CBC Gem. Google is refusing to remove a notorious website from its search results, despite a formal request from Canadian health officials. A CBC News investigation has found the pro-suicide forum has been linked to numerous deaths here and abroad. As Thomas Dagler reports, some users died after ordering products from accused poison broker Kenneth Law.
Around the world, users are logging on to a pro-suicide forum and finding ways to die. CBC News isn't naming the website to avoid promoting it, but it's accessible through a simple Google search. And we've learned the internet giant is refusing to take action despite an official Canadian federal request.
They're choosing not to, which is obviously unfortunate. There's no value to this site. It doesn't benefit anyone. In fact, it does quite the opposite.
A CBC News investigation found multiple deaths in Canada and abroad have been connected to that forum, including suicides linked to Kenneth Law. The alleged poison seller is facing charges of second-degree murder and abetting suicide for 14 deaths across Ontario.
They're all people, and they were loved by their family and
Speaking to reporters last week, police didn't name the forum, but said this.
It is of great concern to law enforcement. One of the challenges that we face are a number of these sites are located in other countries.
The Public Health Agency of Canada says it asked Google in October to remove the forum from its search results. The internet giant refused, telling federal officials in a letter obtained by CBC News, in order to proceed with the legal removal process with respect to your request, we require a valid court order. Gary Cooper from Liverpool, England, was 41 when he died. His brother blames both Kenneth Law and that suicide forum.
To put my life on it, that every single one of his victims and customers, anyone he's ever sent a package to, that customer has come through the pro-suicide forum.
As for Law, he made a brief court appearance today. He remains in custody, awaiting his trial. Thomas Dagg, CBC News, Toronto.
After waiting for weeks, a much-anticipated volcano has burst in Iceland. The impact on the country and whether it could expand is coming up.
If you live here in Mount Stewart, you definitely know Nanny Shirley. She runs the breakfast program here at the school. She's a volunteer and has been for years, and everybody says we gotta meet her. So let's go inside. Tell us a little bit about how the morning's going. What's the setup like?
Well, we come in and just do what we're doing now. We get ready and we have to toast all this bread.
All of it?
Yeah.
How much bread do you got there?
2, 4, 7 loaves, 107 slices of toast.
So you nominated her for us to come visit and take a look at what she does. Why?
Because the woman is awesome. She never stops. She doesn't mind people knowing that she's 91 years old. I have a hard time keeping up with her.
I make the toast, Darlene does the cheese, and she puts it in, we have those containers.
Yeah, we've been doing it, I think, for 9 or 10 years.
Right.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you to do this?
Well, as she said, she had great-grandchildren in the school. I have grandchildren in the school. I have a daughter-in-law who teaches here. There's a lot of kids that are up at 7 o'clock in the morning and on the school bus, and they don't have a chance to have breakfast home.
How many times have you had breakfast from Nanny Shirley?
Like, can't even count.
Can't even count?
Since kindergarten.
Since kindergarten. You're going to be graduating, and she's going to have fed you every year.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Does that mean a lot to you guys?
Yeah.
Good morning, kids. I'm your new delivery here this morning. Good, how are you, Spencer?
Doing well.
Good to see you.
She comes in, she's smiling, she's helping out in the community, helping out in the school, doing anything that we need. And she takes care of us all.
If it wasn't for Nanny Shirley, the breakfast program would be pretty boring around here. And like I said, the kids love seeing Nanny Shirley. Nanny Shirley loves to see the kids.
You have a good day, okay? See you later.
I like to have her energy.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I'd love to have her energy.
She keep you on your toes?
Oh, darn tootin' she does. Yeah, she does so. Keeps me on my toes. Yeah.
I love every minute of it. And I wouldn't give it up unless come the day when I have to, and that'll be, I don't know when. No, I enjoy it.
We're sharing really important information with the public, and I feel like this is exactly what our job is, especially as the public broadcaster, especially in morning radio. That's incredibly important.
After rumbling for nearly 2 months, a volcano in Iceland erupted yesterday, spewing rivers of lava. And as Renee Filipponi shows us, officials are now warning of another potential danger, toxic gas in the capital, Reykjavik.
Lava soars through the air in southwestern Iceland, spewing over a stretch of more than 3 kilometers. Ala Halldórs's daughter drove towards the eruption after witnessing the sky glowing red.
It's the 4th volcano in like 3 years. The last 3, they were not that big, not that close. But this time I was a little bit scared.
Thousands of earthquakes have rattled the region for weeks, forcing the evacuation of nearby town Grindavik in early November.
Currently, we don't really know whether this is going to propagate towards Grindavik. Then, of course, it would be a disaster for the town itself.
Its nearly 4,000 residents have been watching the volcano from a distance.
Very emotional, expecting an eruption for a few weeks now, always waiting, wondering if we can ever go home again.
The other concern, toxic gases that could reach the capital of Reykjavik by Wednesday. But unlike past eruptions, experts say this emergency is unlikely to spread beyond Iceland. In 2010, volcanic ash from a massive earthquake shut down airspace in much of Europe for weeks. The conditions this time are much different.
We are not having an eruption under ice. So the eruption is happening on land. We don't have an interaction of magma and water, which is one of the main drivers of explosive volcanisms on Iceland.
Still, search and rescue crews are patrolling the area. This team member warns snow is covering dangerous cracks and holes made by the volcano, but some still come to witness the natural wonder.
It's a once in a lifetime for us, so we don't want to miss that.
Authorities say they're also watching closely with the goal of getting people home while also keeping them safe. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Vancouver.
Quite a sight Darius Madavi joins us with the forecast. No volcanoes that are that active near us, right?
No, that is right. And so I think looking at the visuals, it really feels like the culmination of everything that we've seen over the last month and a half, really, waiting to see what the seismic activity would shape up like, where the eruption would happen. And so it sort of feels like it's over. And that's sort of the feeling, my initial feeling yesterday when I was first following the story. But it's really just the beginning. Now, the Icelandic Met Office is warning about the potential for additional vents opening up either north or south of the current fissure. So that would be towards the direction of Grindavik, the town. And then the Norwegian their Norwegian counterpart is also saying that we could see cracks form because of the magma tunnel that actually passed underneath the town itself. So still extreme danger there. The evacuation order is still in place, and I think some unfortunate news for residents of the town who were maybe hoping to spend Christmas at home. So not great there whatsoever. But we should also turn our attention here to BC, where also, as we talked about earlier, does not look like a white Christmas, at least not here in the south. But meanwhile, we do have some snowfall warnings up in the north, including for Pine Pass, which is part of the highway there, and then also a freezing rain warning just west of Prince George. So some activity here, but not where we are here in Vancouver. If we take a look again, I know we looked at this earlier, at the accumulation map, you can see a lot of the snowfall that is coming to those to the area with the snowfall warning has come already. That should come down later tonight. The freezing rain warning expected to last just until the wee hours of the morning, but still in place for a while yet. But the other thing I want to mention is if we zoom in after another 24 hours of precipitation, if we then zoom in to the south coast, you can see that for parts of the North Island, there is still some more rain, and a lot of that will be coming as we get later into the day Thursday. Because if we take a look at our precipitation map, you can see that as that continues to roll through, we are going to see some more showers make their way down to the Vancouver area. So as that snowfall does continue throughout parts of the interior, we will see some heavier rain come on Friday, even though the next 2 days will be a little bit drier. Now, if we take a look at our conditions across the province tomorrow, you can see plenty of rainfall, but a lot of this will be just chances of rain, especially here on the coast. And then for the rest of the province, we are going to see some snowfall and some rainfall, but I wouldn't expect to see anything too significant. And unfortunately, we don't seem to have the 5-day forecast loading up. So,
I think we'll survive without it. People know, right? It's going to be rain.
Yeah, I think so. A couple dry days and then a little bit of a wet one on Friday.
Okay.
There you go.
Thanks, buddy. Take care.
Thanks, Dan. You too.
Just 6 more sleeps until Christmas morning, if you can believe it. And for some people, it cannot come soon enough, whoever they are. CBC video producer Nathan Gross has found one family that is dedicated to some very decadent decorations and a miniature village that demands attention.
Back home, we really love Christmas in the Philippines. We try to carry this here. It takes a lot of passion, patience, and patience. It's my dream. It's my ultimate dream to build one. As far as I can remember, since I was a kid, whenever we put up a Christmas tree, I always assort those cardboards that not being used in the house, and I try to make Christmas houses underneath our Christmas tree. And then when I came here in Canada, 13 years ago, I was so amazed to see that there are some ceramic pieces like this. So it's quite expensive though, so I started looking at thrift store. We start buying them because it's cheaper than the brand new ones, so it grows. I have more than 100 buildings, and then people, I don't know, they're like mushrooms. They propagate quickly. We build it with the family, with my children and my wife. So we love Christmas so much.
I don't like too much things around me, and knowing that he has that much stuff made me think like, what am I gonna do if I see that every time I wake up? I got used to it, I guess.
This will take a long time, I said. I would say 5 months, an hour or 2 a day, and full day on my days off. Juggling around with the work and family is it's not easy in Canada, but we try to make time with the family. Actually, that is the real meaning of Christmas. Family togetherness, and it's easier when we do things together.
I still love Christmas as it is, and I've grown to like it even more than when I was younger.
My wife is already bothering me. When are you going to dismantle this? Maybe February, she said, but we might leave it for another year. We'll see. Yeah. We build something that makes us happy.
Have you got any little ones in your life, the perfect holiday present yet? Chances are, if it's a toy, it may have a Canadian connection. We're going to visit a toy heavyweight and hit the offices of Spin Master right after this.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
For 37 years, British Columbians have been donating to food banks at CBC British Columbia's Food Bank Day, raising more than $18 million for food banks in BC. December 1st kicked off the annual charity drive and continues to the end of the month. We thank you for generously donating and supporting local communities in our province. Make the season kind and donate until December 31st at cbc.ca/foodbankday.
Two roosters on the loose in Prince George have caused quite a stir. Animal control officers were scrambling to capture the wayward poultry. Now the SPCA is trying to rehome the birds, but they don't exactly get along.
These two roosters came in via the City of Prince George Animal Control. They were at large and out of care of their guardian, so we don't quite know their pathway into our care. Animal Control had captured them with what looks like a custom-made lasso in one of the photos. They kind of wrangled these two roosters. Immediately I go, where am I going to fit a rooster in this building? And then another photo comes in, and where am I going to fit two big roosters in this building? And they're not best friends, believe it or not. We had assumed that because they were at large together, gallivanting around the town, that they would have come from the same property. But early on, we noticed that they would just kind of make these noises at each other, and we were just a little worried. So rather than wait until they were jerks to each other, we decided to just house them separate. We have a rooster professional on our team that knows all about them, that has been in charge of their care, their feeding. We are hearing the rooster noises throughout the building, and you go in and they're sitting on the top of their kennels and they're all puffy and proud of themselves. We have tentatively named them. We've got Foghorn, which was affectionately named by the people that had found them. And then we named the other one Cluck Norris. So they'll be going up for adoption. They'll be on our adoption website, and hopefully we can find them a forever home for the holidays.
The holidays mark the biggest time of year for toy makers. You may be surprised to learn that Toronto is home to a $2 billion toy company. It's connected with some of the biggest brands in the business, from Paw Patrol to Hatchimals. The CBC's Ladner paid a visit to the headquarters.
Welcome to Spin Master. If you don't know the name, you might have heard of their greatest hits. Power! Air Hogs. Ready for battle! Bakugans. And the omnipresent Paw Patrol. Inside the Toronto headquarters, you'll find inventors tinkering, toys getting glamour shots, and kids doing what kids do.
Couple things to look out for.
It might look like playtime, but the stakes are high. These designers and engineers need to know if the latest product is market ready.
Toy development is such a science and art blend. It's crazy because it's you want to create a magical moment, but you also need to make sure that it can be done and that it's safe.
When you're ready to attract a new Pitsy.
This season, there's an early hit.
So we'll open it up.
And what is that?
That's your astronaut dog.
This is Bitsy, created after years of trial and error.
Obviously, we have adult hands, not kid hands. We use adult forces to open and push down on things.
Enter the real experts.
Okay.
Will these kids play with the water-activated Hatchimals the way the designers intended?
The water turned blue.
One decides the tiny blanket is the best part. The other discovers the egg doesn't open if you put it in upside down. Creating new toys isn't easy, even for Hasbro and Mattel, which rely on classic brands. Harder still for Spin Master, which goes for originals, like their early smash Air Hogs.
Air Hogs brought to you by Spin Master.
It was such a huge risk for us at the time, and it really catapulted us from being this little novelty company to this, to all of a sudden we were a real toy company.
Ben Verdi says the company was forced to innovate when the U.S. toy companies started shutting off distribution channels.
I would say it wasn't a philosophical decision as much as it was a decision of survival. And fortunately, we tapped into the inventor community.
There's all these strange, creative, genius, brilliant people all over the world doing these bizarre little things. We've got mechanisms here.
Rob Schuyler is one of thousands of inventors who pitch companies. His workshop is filled with flashing hedgehogs.
There he goes.
And this.
Is that you? No, but it's a voice actor.
Yeah, he's good.
So an invention can be really simple, or it can be pretty dumb.
But one thing unites them all.
To be an inventor, you're always failing, but failing doesn't have to be a bad thing. Failing is a learning opportunity, right?
And an industry learning opportunity could be looming, with experts forecasting a sluggish holiday season.
Toys are for sure affected by the economy, especially the higher priced toys. But as a general rule, parents will always sacrifice for their kids.
I know, right?
But the long toy timeline waits for no one. So while parents make today's tough choices, Spin Master is already imagining the great toys of 2026.
We OD'd ours a little bit.
Eli Glaster, CBC News, Toronto.
Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch our newscast on CBC Gem, the free app, as well as on YouTube and our website, of course, cbc.ca/BC. I will have your next local news at 11 o'clock, right after the National. See you then.